Hello and welcome to The Urbanist, Monocle's programme all about the built environment. I'm your host, Andrew Tuck. Coming up,
the best example I can give is any venture capital fund. Their mindset is we're going to invest in 10 companies. We expect 7 to go bust, 1 to break even, and 2 to be jackpots. And they double down on those jackpots. We kind of work the same way. We go and we actually look at all the opportunities and we double down on the ones that make sense. And the ones that don't make sense, we don't consider them failures.
We're reporting from this year's World Government Summit, which is convening under the theme of Shaping Future Governments. The summit brings together heads of state, international organisations and the private sector to help bring into focus the next generation of public governance. Well, the Monocle team is on the ground here in Dubai, and over the next 30 minutes I'll bring you a snapshot of the sort of urban-focused dialogue that's been happening at the summit. So stay tuned, because that's all ahead right here on The Urbanist with me, Andrew Tuck. If there's one thing that Dubai knows well, it's the pace of rapid urban transformation. So it's important to think about how the city will grow and evolve as it continues to flourish. This is where Dubai Future Foundation, the institution tasked with reimagining and designing the future of Dubai by bringing the public and private sector together, comes in. Earlier, myself and Monocle's head of radio, Tom Edwards, spoke with Khalfan Belhoul, the CEO of Dubai Future Foundation. Let's have a listen.
The biggest blessing we have is we're in a country that is just 50 plus years old, and people tend to think that this is a country that's hundreds of years old. I remember the days when I was in college, which was even maybe 100 years ago. I used to tell people I'm from Dubai, I studied in the States, and people would ask where Dubai is. Unfortunately, at that time, I had to relate to unfortunate circumstances in the region, like the Gulf War. So I had to relate to, do you know when Iraq is in Kuwait? We're a small city next to that area, and people would start to relate. Now, fast forward in this short period of time, when you go abroad and you say you're from Dubai or the UAE, it's one of those two answers. It's either, wow, I've been there, or I've heard so much and I want to go there, which has turned a lot of things. I'm not saying we're perfect, but some things have happened, and I'm going to allude to them, that have really created this speed of development. And they all evolve around visionary leaders that really have prosperity and focus on the human as their priority, beyond anything else. There's less interest in geopolitics, there's zero interest in conflicts. We're more about connecting dots, building bridges, making friends. As small as we are as a country, we are super ambitious. And with that, I think you see the result. It's a country that was depending on oil at its infancy, and now with the diversity of its population, of its investments, of its GDP, we see it going from strength to strength.
I've been coming here for 20 years, and for me to see the progress of Dubai, of the UAE over that time is also extraordinary. I just wanted to pick up one word, because you talked there also about hinting that there's also a need to think about how people feel in spaces, the softer side of city making, because I think sometimes when people think about the future of the city, of course AI is important, smart cities are important, but is it also important for you that people feel a sense of attachment and love and passion for the place as well?
My friend, this is even more important than AI. This is actually the core of how this country is driven. And I'll give you several examples. I mean, as much as we, of course, embrace technology and we know it's going to have a major impact on all jobs, including our jobs and maybe even those kind of interviews, even though we enjoy humans and
Please
being...
not.
No, absolutely not. I don't think anyone can replace your skills. Of course, I mean, there will be efficiencies, but I think the idea is that humans should be in the forefront. And we've noticed this through different challenges that came to us throughout this journey, whether it's the pandemic and our focus on health and safety, as much as the lockdown has created such an economical damage to the city, which is normal. A city that depends a lot on logistics, tourism, travel, would definitely be harmed. But at that time, it was the focus on what matters the most for humans. And that time, it was their health and safety. Opened up, welcomed everyone with open arms, and focused on priority things. They weren't AI and they weren't investments or financial gains. It was, how do we make sure people are safe and happy in the city? Which means They travel well to the city. They get welcomed in the best way. They find best healthcare systems, best education system, very diverse community, and most importantly, safety for them and their kids. We tend to underestimate all those components, but I truly believe, and the leadership truly believe, that those are the main drivers. And then, of course, the enablers that attract business are technology, investments, the hedge funds of the world that come here to look at opportunities, yes, but make no mistake, they're humans at the end of the day, and they want the best life for them and for their children.
You mentioned the best of so many different things, and at Monocle we're kind of obsessed with benchmarking excellence in every facet, in cities, in placemaking, in business best practice. It's funny, Dubai, I guess, was looking to those benchmarks, like Andrew said, 20 years ago. Now people are coming here to see and find their benchmarks. Where and how do you look for the next set of benchmarks? Is it particular places you go? Is it an attitude you take with you on your travels to observe? Where do you source your next set of great ideas from?
So that's amazing you mentioned this. Of course, we always learn, and we will constantly learn from other cities and countries, which remain to be areas of learning, and we travel around the world and understand. We don't say we're the best. We definitely strive to be the best. And yes, in the past, we definitely looked at different cities, and now we're right up there with the leading cities. And this will continue to be the case. We learn from one another. But what keeps us going and really raising the bar at this stage is actually the push we have from leaders and the support and the delegation and trust. And I can't forget one of the things that personally happened to me. I've been blessed also to oversee sports, and we have inaugurated the World Sports Summit last year, and we were blessed to have any athlete that you can imagine attending the first inaugural one, whether it's from a federation perspective, and Gianni Infantino or Novak or Khabib or Usyk or Ronaldo, or you name them, I can go. There are more than 100 athletes that came in. And while we were handing the awards to the athletes in the award ceremony, I was standing next to His Highness Sheikh Hamdan. He looked at me and said, "We need to make this even bigger." So for me, I was at a moment of satisfaction of where we have achieved, but the Crown Prince was actually looking at a bigger ambition and a vision for version number 2. So it's not only benchmarking, it's also the push for us to do even more every single year is what keeps us always on the toes, and to constantly try to deliver something that makes everyone really appreciate the efforts that happen here.
We touched on the fact that there are simple solutions sometimes to city problems, and there are technological ones, but there's a project that you've certainly been involved with, which seems to bring the two together, this relief idea, which is using shade, plant life, but also AI to think how it's implemented. Are some of the solutions for future-proofing cities kind of right in front of your nose in a way? As Tom was saying, maybe some of the reflections from the past, how architecture and design was used in traditional Emirati architecture, how trees provided shade, what the purpose of those are. Are you building those into your ability to be a city that can, not control, but can live in temperatures which are sometimes higher?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, of course, we try to solve for any challenges that can be related to the region. One of which, at some point, climate, even though arguably you can also debate that Dubai has an amazing weather almost 8 months a year. But of course, we need to cater for the hotter months of the year. Maybe people talk about traffic and how we can manage for that. I mean, the good news about traffic is it means it's a good problem to have because more people are coming here. But at the same time, you might have heard about the announcement, the Dubai Loop, which is a Musk partnership, which we've been blessed to initiate the conversations at an early stage. And now, of course, the Road and Transportation Authority are joining from an operational standpoint and have been doing an amazing job with this mandate. But this is an innovative solution that will reduce a challenge relevant to our region, including the shading initiative that you've mentioned through relief. The idea is that our mandate, and this is the beauty and yet exciting and extremely hectic scope that we have at Dubai Future Foundation, because the word future is so agnostic. It doesn't mean future of health, it doesn't mean future of security, it doesn't mean future of mobility, it's the future of everything. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we can do everything. It's how do we prioritize what is more important for humanity as a whole that we can do through Dubai, which of course will trigger the top priorities and concerns for people. How do we embrace AI? How do we leverage green energy? How do we work with cryptocurrency and blockchain? How do we deal with climate? Those things are the talk of the world, and what can we do about them to create a better world for humanity? The biggest challenge is, and this is where we believe is our secret sauce, maybe not so much of a secret anymore, but I think it's the agility and speed in embracing those ideas and really actioning them so many people know about those concerns and so many people talk about those concerns. It's how do you really ensure that your regulations, your legislations, your government agencies work closely with the private sector to ensure that you create a sandbox environment for them to test those ideas, and beyond test, you implement.
I was going to say that, is there a sense that you have also managed to stay maybe ahead of some other cities, because in some sense it is a test lab? You're willing to take a few more risks than maybe other places can afford to or are willing to. There's a sense here, and you feel it in the mentality of everybody here you meet, that let's have a go, let's see what's possible.
Yes, absolutely. And I think if you think about this formula, the best example I can give is any venture capital fund. When you look at a VC fund, from the biggest ones to even the first timers, their mindset is, we're going to invest in 10 companies, we expect 7 to go bust, 1 to break even, and 2 to be jackpots. And they double down on those jackpots. And those jackpots recover and beyond all the portfolio that invested, or else they're not going to do the fund, right? So we kind of work the same way. We go and we actually look at all the opportunities and we double down on the ones that make sense, and the ones that don't make sense, we don't consider them failures. Those are pivoting moments, learning curves. The team that have been going through those projects will become equipped with knowledge that will help you to avoid those mistakes going forward. So you've actually built even more talented individuals to be more agile for the next investments. So this is the way you can imagine our leaders really as entrepreneurs. I mean, Muhannad, he really works like an entrepreneur and a venture capitalist. And there's delegation and trust. But of course, when I say failure in projects, you need to take the health and safety of the people as a priority. So you don't go, if you want to test for drones, you need to test in safe areas. You're not going to test where a drone can fall on people, right? So you create testing environments that are safe, faster and agile, and make sure your regulations adapt to those changes in a swift way.
That's really interesting in terms of the risk appetite. As you said, it is a VC mindset, it's an entrepreneurial mindset. If we come back to cities, and one of the things that's incredible about cities is jeopardy. You never know what's around the next corner. Is there ever a tension there, Khalfan, in terms of how you can have the rigour and the structure and the clarity of ambition, but allow for uncertainty, chance, the serendipity that makes cities exciting? Is that an interesting mix to try and do?
It's actually part of the DNA of Dubai Future Foundation. So a percentage chunk of our budget as Dubai Future Foundation is always going to the ad hoc kind of commitments, which is exactly what you mentioned. And you need that because, and I reiterate, it's not the whole portfolio, it's a portion, because you need that flexibility. I'd say 80 to 90% is driven by proper foresight. We have a team that does horizon scanning, does foresight on a daily basis, gives us better predictions and understanding of the future so we can deploy projects for a better future in a smarter way. But given the speed of how the future changes, which is insane compared to the first and second and third industrial revolutions, this is quantum compared to it. So yes, we'd like to know everything, but no, we won't know everything. So there always is an opportunity for something that will come on a semi-surprising basis. And with that, then we need to explore it and take it forward.
Finally, just tell us, what's the top of your inbox now? Someone told me yesterday that roughly 800 to 1,000 people move to Dubai every day at the moment. Is the growth of the city one of the other challenges? What's the top of your inbox at the moment?
I mean, like I said, it's an amazing problem to have. It will definitely create more economy, more GDP, more vibrancy, more diversity. But at the same time, we need to make sure our infrastructure is ready for that. The growth of the city is ready for that. But I'm sure the teams at Dubai Municipality, Dubai Roads and Transportation, and Dubai Economy are working hand in hand to ensure that we really embrace this growth in a positive way to create the most beautiful city in the world.
Khalfan Belhoul there, the CEO of Dubai Future Foundation, in conversation with myself and Tom Edwards. As the pace of digitisation accelerates across all sectors around the globe, it's important for cities to keep up. A keener focus on this topic from central governments can help improve life in municipalities, from the way transport and services are delivered to how businesses thrive. Karsten Wildberger is the Federal Minister for Digital Transformation and Government Modernisation in Germany, a new ministry for the country established in 2025. Karsten spoke with Tom Edwards, and Tom began by asking about the quality of the discourse a forum such as the World Governments Summit?
Well, I think here at this massive conference, it's fantastic to meet many people, to see also how digitization, AI is being used in governmental services. Is also to understand different trends, how to modernize government, state services. And it's a forum where you can meet companies and also strengthen the relationship with the UAE, which is very important to Germany.
Now, Tommy, you worked in business, of course, for many years as well. Tell me a little bit about the learnings moving between these worlds, the public and private, because sometimes we say, oh, it's incumbent on business to drive the agenda, especially with tech. Other times government, particularly if we think about regulation, has to take the lead. Do you wear both of those coats equally lightly? How challenging is that to move between those worlds?
Of course, the worlds are very different. The system is very different. But like in business, if you have a goal and a plan, what you want to execute. So the way I work is, what do I want to achieve in the next 2 or 3 years or in this legislation? And I have to work my way backwards, given the system. So how do I execute, given how the system works, the decision-making process? And the way we work is, we actually work in projects. So the whole ministry is embracing big projects that scale, from bringing digital services to more municipalities, automating many of the approval processes in government using agentic AI. So all of those things in terms of project management, we try to adopt in politics, but at the same time, of course, the decision-making process is different, but that's also fun.
Fun, that wasn't the word I was expecting. How nimble is it though? Because I think we have a problem obviously in the UK where I live with sometimes bureaucracy being a little cumbersome, a bit clunky, not super adaptable. I guess these new tools enable that kind of dexterity, right?
Well, the role of the ministry is threefold. One big role is, we call it government modernization, and that is about cutting bureaucracy, making life easier again for citizens, for business, and cutting red tape. That is a slow process, albeit we are making actually good progress. We have, for the first time, I would say in 20 years, a plan that is well structured and also committed. We have an alignment on the federal side and the states. And now we're working our way through all the things that we promised. And that decision-making process takes time, but it's a very well-structured approach. And we're also changing the approach because, for instance, we have cabinet meetings that is only devoted to cutting bureaucracy. So it's the first time. I wish that we accelerate along the way, but that's one role. The other one is the digitization of government, the public service. And the third area is, how do we use digitization and AI to increase innovation for our companies and to stimulate growth. But cutting bureaucracy, making us faster, is one of the key things. And we have had already in the first 9 months some great successes. So we're translating the effect into euro savings of what we call bureaucracy costs. What we've put in the pipeline is worth 8 billion euros. Much more to come, but it's a good start.
Pretty good. Let me ask you about the public appetite and whether that keeps pace, because I think business can demonstrate this adaptability. You're delivering it in government. You've got the numbers, as you just said, to show. Is the public keeping pace? It's funny, there's such an appetite for doing here in UAE. People are working so hard. One problem in Europe that some people might point out is the appetite for that kind of work. People are looking at, should we be looking at a 4-day week or a 3-day week? Is that out of step with the pace of change and the appetite for change, do you think?
I think what's happening at the moment, technology and the rate of change is happening at such a speed that it's hard for people and a social system to adapt. My concern is, by getting stuck just in the conversation, should we do it or do not, we're missing out on growth, we're missing out on innovation, and that is the worst of all outcomes. So the way I like to think about it, first, we need to embrace the technology. We need to master it. We should also have the ambition to not just follow, at some point lead, even though I know there's a lot of ground to be made. And the second conversation we need to have, in parallel, how are we dealing with the consequences? And what I'm experiencing at the moment, it looks like technology is always at least one step ahead, but we need to find the right answers. And I'm not downplaying the second question, how do we deal with the social, consequences, the ability to adapt, because that means all of us, we have to change the way we work. We have to learn lifelong. There are jobs where machines will be better at. At the same time, it allows us to also have more growth It allows us also to refocus on things that matter more, because by let the machines deal with the complexity or with things that we don't like to do. So we have to work in both worlds. And I think Europe has to wake up and embrace really fully innovation.
And then do you think Europe, and this is a slightly crass generalization, but is it in this moment a little sluggish? If we look at the dynamism around the Gulf, we can look to so many other markets. If we look further east, for example, is there a bit of a malaise? Do you feel that?
I would say there are two things. First, Europe is indeed too slow. We have built a regulation that prevents ourselves from innovating faster. So we have to cut regulation and give innovation much more space. But at the same time, as people always exaggerate, there is a lot Europe has to offer. When I think about our values, our educational system, our industries, and I think our job is cutting bureaucracy and giving innovation more space and wake up the European lion, because it is a lion, but it's a bit passive at the moment. But let's not forget what kind of beast we can be.
I like that. It's just a little drowsy. It'll get there. Maybe it needs some of this UAE sunshine. What are you most excited about, Minister, as you look ahead? You can choose your timeline, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. What is it that gets you springing out of bed in the morning?
Although it takes a lot of energy, I can't think of a more honorable, purposeful work to try to contribute a little bit of cutting bureaucracy, embracing innovation. We have a fantastic program of scaling agentic AI in the public service. I see extraordinary dynamics in the startup scene in Germany, especially driven by software and AI. I see more and more companies also, like our industrial powerhouses like Siemens or Bosch, embracing industrial AI and actually creating solutions of world-class standard. So those things we just need to double down on, and that gets me excited. And I'm very positive in that sense, given all the other challenges we have. I'm getting it, and I know it, I feel it. But despite all of that, I'm getting very excited also about the opportunities.
Okay, last thing, regulation. Lots of these industries, you said the pace is so fast, there's fixes for problems before you know it's a problem. This is what you're dealing with every day. How does anybody regulate that environment?
I personally think, especially when you think about AI, there is a lot of different areas, of course, of regulation, but I think we need values and we shouldn't downplay the risks. At the same time, we've become much too complex in creating enough space and room for innovation. And that's, I think, we need to change. But think about the following. When we get it right, we have much more room for innovation. And based on European values, what a value proposition this is. That's what's worth fighting for.
My thanks there to Karsten Wildberger, speaking with Monocle's Tom Edwards. To elaborate further on the idea of smart cities and how embracing this idea can help achieve more sustainable urban environments, Tom was joined by Muhannad Tayem, who is a partner and government and public sector leader for Deloitte Middle East. Muhannad's work across the region helps nations build resilient infrastructure, sustainable cities, and forward-thinking economies. Tom began by asking about the challenges and opportunities of trying to deliver smart cities that are also sustainable cities.
It's absolutely, as you said, a challenge and opportunity, and that's what the summit is about, because the summit basically handles the challenges that governments are facing and opportunities for solutions. And technology and smart solutions are definitely one of those solutions for those challenges. So if we move to smart city, I would say this is not a trend anymore. It is a reality. It's there, whether in well-established cities or greenfield, as basically new ones in some of the countries that we have seen. And each will have its own challenges and restrictions and opportunities on what can be done in a certain duration and what can't be done within the limitations.
Well, let's talk a bit about that. What is then the prototypical perfect project? Is it sort of easier to try and reverse engineer fixes into established cities, or is it actually better to start with a clean slate? Then you've got to do everything, I guess, from the ground up, but at least you can be more strategic, you can be more structurally holistic in your approach. Is there a better project?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say better, but I would say the dream basically stage or phase is when you are in a state where it's a greenfield, a new city that we're trying to build, and that's why it becomes really much easier for you to do whatever you want, because there are no constraints in relation to logistics, no constraints in relation to infrastructure that is there, and you can design that city in the right way that can accommodate whatever you want to put in a reasonable duration.
And tell me a little bit about the other positive ingredients. Does it matter where the driving force is coming from, Muhannad? By which I mean, is it easier, again, if it's being driven by a central government program or in a location where there's a federalized program? Is it better when it's being driven by private interests? Do you see in terms of pace and ambition that there's stakeholders who kind of get things done more easily?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And I can tell you that the Middle East region is quite unique because government still drives that expansion and that agenda, but they're encouraging the private sector to partner with them and basically take a role. And we've seen some of the nature of procurement-related services in a smart city are becoming more outcome-driven rather than fixed price ones by some of the partners when they partner with the government.
So tell me about the mechanics of how you would get involved. If you're involved in a project, let's say it's one of these dream scenarios, what are the nuts and bolts of what you will be doing project by project?
You mean as a company?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can do a number of services throughout the life journey of that. We can do a feasibility study on basically checking whether that location of that basically area is the right one based on the purpose that the government or the private companies are trying to do to build that. We can manage the overall process. We can implement smart technologies that will make basically the city more livable and increase the quality of life for the customers. So name it.
The full suite,
Absolutely,
the full service.
yeah.
Well, talk to me about tools, because obviously AI is a hot topic here as it is anywhere. I imagine I know the answer to this question, man, but I'll ask you anyway. Is it a tool about which we should be excited? It can drive efficiencies. It can be democratizing. It can be an enabler. Or other things about it that concern you? I guess looking at smart cities and technology-forward cities, it's easier to see all the positives. Presumably there are some challenges with AI. Where do you stand on that debate?
Well, AI is not only an enabler these days. It's basically a necessity. And our clients basically expect that in using AI in whatever we provide to them in terms of services. From the time we produce few slides to the time we implement basically solutions as technology solutions to them for different purposes. What's really important is to use the AI for a purpose and to provide benefit. Not just to say, well, I have a solution that is AI enabled and I have those cases, which I have to say is somehow unfortunately happening in some of the discussions, simply because the level of maturity still is not there in the way to execute and the benefit that should be achieved out of the execution on that.
Muhannad, just a final thought. What are you most excited about? Look forwards, all those meetings, all these prospects. What gives you, the greatest cause for optimism and makes you most excited as you look forward?
Well, governments in the Middle East are investing heavily in really technology, AI implementations, smart cities, new regulations. They're making life easier to the citizens, the visitors. The maturity varies from one country to the other, so they are working on enhancements that is of our interest, whether as a company that provides services or a company that has a purpose. So it's a very interesting moments to be here and to engage with our clients, existing ones and future ones, and government officials, so we can work with them and help them make the economy and make the society future enabled and future ready.
Muhannad Tayem there, speaking with Tom Edwards, and my thanks to both of them. And that's all for this week's episode of The Urbanist. You can follow us for new editions of the show every week, and you can subscribe to Monocle magazine for reports on all things design, architecture and urbanism too. Just visit monocle.com. The Urbanist is produced by Carlotta Rebello and by David Stevens, who also edits the show. This episode had editing assistance, of course, by Sam Impey on the ground here in Dubai. I'm Ajit Tark. Goodbye, and thank you for listening, city lovers.